I have a problem, or at least I used to think it was a problem, because no matter what was happening in my life, there was always a part of me somewhere else, even on good days. Actually, especially on good days. I'd be sitting in my room, playing a game I loved, watching a movie I was excited for, hanging out with my friends, doing absolutely normal things. And out of nowhere, I'd get this feeling, this weird pull, like life was happening somewhere else. Not better, just elsewhere. Maybe you have felt it too. You're lying in bed at night and suddenly you're thinking about a city you've never been to, a country you have never visited, a stadium you have only seen through a screen, a restaurant whose name you can't pronounce, a conversation you have never had with someone you have never met. And for a few seconds, those things feel strangely close, like they are waiting for you, like your life is somehow bigger than the version you're currently living. For years, I thought this meant I was ungrateful, that maybe I didn't know how to appreciate what I already had, because we are told that satisfaction is a virtue, that contentment is maturity, that constantly wanting more is somehow a flaw. But the older I get, the less I think that's true. Because I don't think what I wanted was more. I think I wanted different places, different people, different experiences, different versions of life. And once I started paying attention, I realized almost everyone my age feels this way. We just describe it differently. Some call it wanderlust, some call it ambition, some call it curiosity. Some don't have a word for it at all. But it's there. That feeling that your life isn't supposed to stay inside one small corner of the world forever. And honestly, I don't think this feeling is random. I think something happened to our generation, something no generation before us experienced. Because for the first time in human history, we grew up seeing the entire world, not pieces of it, the whole thing. Before we were old enough to drive, before we earned our first salary, before we even figured out who we are, we already knew what night looked like in Tokyo, what Iceland looked like in winter, what it felt like when 80,000 people erupted after a last minute goal. We knew these places existed, and once you know that, something changes. And the strange thing is, nobody really prepares you for this feeling. Nobody sits you down and says, hey, at some point, you're going to see enough of the world that your own life starts to feel like it has unfinished business. School doesn't talk about it. Nobody warns you. You just wake up one day and you're 17 or 19 or 23 and you have the list in your head. Not a bucket list, not goals, just places, moments, feelings, things you haven't done yet but somehow already know you need to. And the list keeps growing faster than you can actually live it. And you don't know whether that's exciting or terrifying. Honestly, it's both at the same time. But here's what really gets me. We are the first generation that has to deal with this at this scale. Like, this isn't just you, this isn't just me. Go talk to anyone our age. Really, talk to them, not small talk. And at some point in the conversation, this feeling comes up. The friend who's doing well at his job but keeps talking about that one trip he wants to take. The person who has a perfectly good life but stays up at night thinking about a completely different one. The person who's surrounded by people who love them but still feels like something important hasn't happened yet. It's everywhere. And we have just collectively decided not to talk about it directly. So we post about it. We make playlists about it. We watch videos about it at midnight, which, if you're watching this right now, maybe that's exactly what you're doing. And I think it's worth actually saying out loud for once. Because I don't think this feeling is weakness. I don't think it's ingratitude. I think it's one of the most honest things about us. So that's what this video is going to be all about. Why some people spend their whole lives inside one version of life, and why others feel this constant pull towards experiences they haven't had yet. Where that feeling comes from, why it never seems to go away, and why I don't think it's a problem anymore. I think it might actually be the point. Whenever people talk about ambition, they usually talk about money, careers, success, achievement. But I don't think the biggest thing the internet gave our generation was ambition. I think it gave us awareness. And those are completely different things. Think about your grandparents or even your parents when they were growing up. What did their world actually look like? Most people knew their neighborhood, their city, their country, maybe a few places they'd visited. The world existed beyond that, of course, but it wasn't present. It wasn't constantly sitting in front of them. There were no travel vlogs, no YouTube videos, no creators documenting their lives every day, no algorithm introducing them to a new country before breakfast. The world had edges, and those edges felt normal. Then something changed. A kid sitting in Mumbai could suddenly spend an evening walking through Tokyo. Not physically, but close enough. A teenager could watch someone backpack across Europe, watch a World Cup in Brazil, watch a creator build a business from their bedroom, watch people living lives that look completely different from their own. And that's the part I think people underestimate. The internet doesn't just give us information, it gives us access. Access to lives we never would have seen otherwise. I remember being younger and watching a bunch of YouTube videos for hours. One video would become 10, 10 would become 50. Suddenly it was 2 a.m. and I was watching somebody explore a country I'd never heard of, or filming a football match halfway across the world, or eating food I had never seen before. And the weird thing wasn't that I enjoyed watching it. The weird thing was how much I wanted to be there. Not later, not someday, but now. Inside that moment, and I don't think I was watching because I was entertained. I think I was collecting possibilities without realizing it. Like there was this one specific feeling I remember. You know, when you finish watching something, a video, a documentary, a travel film, and you just sit there for a second, not reaching for your phone, just sitting there because something in your brain is still processing, still somewhere else, still in that city or that stadium or that moment you just watched. That feeling, I had that constantly. And I started to notice that it wasn't just entertainment, it was changing something. Every video was quietly rewriting what I thought was possible for my own life. Like before, I saw someone travel solo for the first time. That wasn't even a category in my head. It didn't exist as an option, and then suddenly it did. Before, I saw a super clear beach or an amazing view from a mountain. I didn't know that was something I needed to experience in person. And then I did. That's what I mean by collecting possibilities. You're not just watching, you're quietly building a picture of what your life could look like. And the more you watch, the bigger and more detailed that picture gets. Until one day you look up from the screen and your actual life feels a little small for the picture you have been building. Not in a sad way, in a I need to start closing the gap kind of way. Every video was quietly expanding my understanding of what life would look like. And once that starts happening, it's very difficult to go backwards because every new possibility changes you. You see enough of the world, and eventually, one life starts feeling too small. Here's the strange part. I think our generation was given something beautiful, and I think it came with a cost. Because for most of human history, people could only want what they knew existed. Our desires were local, our dreams were local, our imagination was local. Not because people lacked ambition, because information had limits. You can't dream about places you have never heard of. You can't miss experiences you have never imagined. But we can. And that's where things get complicated. Because we are probably the first generation in history whose desires were shaped by the entire planet. Think about that for a second. A teenager in Mumbai can dream about Iceland, Madrid, Tokyo, New York, the Northern Lights, the World Cup, the Champions League, street food in Bangkok, a film festival in Cannes, all before they have even finished school. And that's insane. And honestly, it's also kind of overwhelming because your actual life can only happen in one place at a time. But your curiosity doesn't care about that. Your curiosity is everywhere. Part of you wants to travel, part of you wants to create, part of you wants to watch every great film ever made, part of you wants to sit in a stadium during a World Cup final, part of you wants to learn a language, part of you wants to disappear into a city where nobody knows your name. And suddenly you find yourself carrying the weight of 1,000 possible lives while only being able to live one. And I want to sit in that for a second because I don't think we talk about how genuinely strange that is. You're one person, one body, one life, one timeline. But your curiosity, the version of you that exists in your head, that person has already been everywhere. That person has already stood in the stadiums, already eaten the food, already had the conversation, already lived six different versions of a life you haven't started yet. And then you have to come back every single day. You have to come back to the one life that's actually happening. And sometimes that gap between the life in your head and the life in front of you feels enormous. Not because your real life is bad, but because your imagination has already been so many places your body hasn't. I think about this especially when I'm somewhere genuinely amazing. Like, even in those moments, even when I'm actually there, I'm actually present, I'm actually feeling it, there's still a part of me thinking about the next thing, the next place, the next experience, the next version of life I haven't tried yet. And for a long time, I thought that meant I was broken somehow, like I was incapable of just being satisfied. But I slowly started to think it means something different. I think it just means the appetite is real. And an appetite that doesn't go away even when you're eating, that's not a flaw. That's just who you are. For a long time, I thought that feeling meant something was missing. Like there was a hole somewhere inside me. Like I should have been more satisfied, more content, more grateful. But I don't think that's what it was. I think what I was feeling wasn't emptiness. It was awareness. Awareness of how much life exists beyond my current experience. And maybe that's uncomfortable. Maybe it creates restlessness. Maybe it makes your current world feel smaller sometimes. But maybe that's okay because every map starts with the same thing, the realization that there are places you haven't been yet. And maybe this feeling we have all been carrying around isn't a flaw. Maybe it's just the map unfolding. But there's just one problem with all of this. One problem with wanting to experience everything, wanting to see everything, wanting to feel everything. You can't. You actually can't do it. No matter how badly you want to, no matter how much time you have, no matter how much money you make, you cannot experience everything. And I think for a long time that genuinely bothered me. Think about the actual scale of what exists. There are almost 200 countries on this planet, thousands of cities, Millions of books written by millions of different minds, millions of films, millions of people walking around right now with entire lives and stories and perspectives you will never hear. There are football matches happening this weekend that would genuinely move you and you'll never watch them. There are conversations that would change how you think with people you'll never meet. There are friendships that would have defined your life that simply wouldn't happen. There are sunsets in places you'll never reach that nobody will ever describe to you. And that sounds obvious when I say it out loud. But actually, sit with it for a second. Your life is finite. The world isn't. That gap doesn't close, it just gets wider the more you learn about what exists. When I was younger, I genuinely thought growing up would solve this. I thought, okay, right now I'm limited. Right now I don't have money. I don't have freedom. I don't have time. But eventually I will. And when I do, I'll be able to do everything I want, see everything I want, experience everything I want. I was just waiting to unlock the full version of life. But the older I get, the more I realize that version doesn't exist because it's not just about resources. It's about something much more uncomfortable than that. Every single time you say yes to one thing, you're automatically saying no to a thousand others. If I spend a month in Europe, that's a month I'm not spending in Japan, in South America, in Southeast Asia. If I spend a weekend watching football, I'm not watching films, not reading, not doing something else entirely. If I commit to being a creator, I am denying 10 other versions of myself that were also possible. Every yes is secretly a thousand no's, and nobody really prepares you for that. Nobody tells you that choosing a life, any life, means quietly letting go of all the others. When we are kids, life feels like it's only expanding. More options every year, more possibilities, more freedom, more doors opening. And then somewhere along the way, something shifts. You start to realize that life isn't just about opening doors, it's also about closing them. And for a while, I genuinely hated that. I hated knowing there were experiences I'd never had, places I'd never see, versions of myself I'd never get to become. It felt like loss before anything was even gone, like grieving a life you never lived. But then something slowly started to shift in how I thought about it because I started asking a different question. Not why can't I have everything, but why do I want it so badly in the first place? And I think the answer is actually sitting right inside the problem. If we could do everything, nothing would feel special. If we had unlimited time, nothing would feel urgent. If every experience was guaranteed, none of them would actually move you. The fact that we can't experience everything might actually be the exact reason we want to experience anything at all. Scarcity is what creates meaning, and a life where everything was possible might actually feel like nothing mattered. But here's what I eventually realized. The problem was never that I couldn't experience anything. The problem was that I thought I was supposed to. For a long time, I treated life like a checklist. Places to visit, things to do, experiences to collect. Like the goal was to fit as much as possible into one lifetime. And if I'm being honest, I think a lot of us do this without even realizing it. We see people traveling the world, we see creators living these incredible lives, we see athletes and artists and filmmakers and entrepreneurs, and without noticing, we start treating life like a race against possibility. Like we are constantly running behind all the experiences we haven't had yet. Always behind, always catching up, never quite there. But the more I sat with that feeling, the more I realized that's not actually what I want. Because when I think about the people I genuinely admire, the people who seem the most alive when you are around them, it's never because they have done everything. It's because they never stopped being curious about what's next. And those are completely different things. Some people stop exploring at 25, some people stop at 40, some people stop without ever leaving their city. Not because life stopped offering them things, but because at some point they decided, consciously or not, that they had already seen enough, that there was nothing left that could genuinely surprise them, that the world had shown them what it had to show, and they closed themselves quietly, slowly, without even noticing. They just closed themselves. And I think that's what I'm actually afraid of. Not missing out on experiences, not failing, not ending up in the wrong city or choosing the wrong path. I'm afraid of becoming someone who stops being curious. Because honestly, curiosity is the only reason I am who I am right now. Curiosity is what made me click on videos from countries I'd never heard of. Curiosity is what made me fall completely in love with films, music, gaming. Curiosity is what made me care deeply about football clubs on the other side of the planet. Curiosity is what made me start creating. Curiosity is what made me book that trip to Goa. Curiosity is what made me want to sit here and talk to you about all of this. Every single thing I've ever done that actually mattered started with just being curious enough to look. And maybe that's the thing I've been trying to protect this whole time. Not some impossible dream of experiencing everything, just the part of me that still wants to. Because the opposite of experiencing everything isn't staying in one place, it's believing there's nothing left worth discovering. And that's a very different thing, a very different and much scarier thing. You can discover something completely new in another country. You can discover something completely new in a conversation with a stranger. You can discover something in a book you almost didn't pick up, in a film you almost skipped, in a street in a city you have lived in your entire life that you just never walked down before. You don't need to constantly be moving to keep discovering. You just need to stay open. So I've stopped thinking about this as a checklist, stopped thinking about all the things I haven't done yet, all the places I haven't been, all the experiences I haven't had, because the world is too big and life is too short. There will always be another city, another story, another person, another moment waiting somewhere I haven't found yet. That never ends. And I've made peace with that, because actually, I think that's one of the most beautiful things about being alive. The fact that the world is bigger than any one person will ever fully see is exactly what makes it worth spending your whole life looking. So, no, I won't experience everything. Nobody will. But I hope I never lose the feeling that makes me want to try, because I think that feeling, that curiosity, that pull, that hunger for more life, that might just be what a good life actually feels like from the inside. You know what nobody tells you? That at some point in the middle of an ordinary moment, you'll suddenly feel it. Not in a place you plan to visit, not on a trip you saved up for, not at some destination you had circled for years, just somewhere doing something with someone or completely alone. And for a few seconds, everything goes quiet. And you think, oh, this is it. This is what I was looking for. This is what all of it was pointing toward. And then the moment passes, the way all moments do, and you're back in your life, back in your body, back in the ordinary. But something is different now. Something shifted, something that can't unshift. And you spend the rest of your life half living, half looking for that feeling again. I think that's what this is really about. Not travel, not experiences, not collecting moments like they're something you can hold on to. Just that feeling, that specific feeling of being completely alive inside a moment where the world is real and you are real and everything makes a kind of sense it doesn't usually make. We spend so much of our lives trying to find our way back to that feeling through places, through people, through films and football and food and everything else. All of it, every single bit of it, is just us trying to feel that again and again. I don't think the hunger ever goes away. I don't think it's supposed to. I think we are just by nature creatures who need to feel alive, really alive, not just existing, not just getting through the week, actually fully alive. And we will cross oceans for that feeling. We will stay up until 3 a.m. for that feeling. We will spend money we don't have for that feeling. We will make decisions that don't make sense on paper for that feeling, because we have felt it before, even just once, even just for a second. And we know there's nothing else quite like it. So maybe that's what it means to want to experience everything. Not a checklist, not a map with pins in it, not a highlight reel, just a life spent chasing that feeling of being somewhere, anywhere, and thinking, I am glad I am alive. I am glad I'm here. I am glad I didn't stay home.